For this meditation, we're going to be exploring sensual enjoyment, but also purity of sensual enjoyment through eating. Now, I've got tea, a bit of a salad, and some strawberries and some chocolate, so that I have a wide range of things that I can experience here. If you want to pause and go grab yourself some snacks, I would recommend a mix of things so that you can play and experiment a little. And you can do that now and rejoin us. So this meditation is going to differ a little bit from the other types of eating meditation that ask you to think of where your food came from and all the people involved in it. This is more direct experience. So what I kind of want to present to you to start with is a bit of an analogy to help understand the difference between sort of pure sensual enjoyment and under or over stimulation, because we're going for a balance here in our experience. And if you start rubbing your hands very lightly and slowly over each other, you can feel how much sensory input or how rich that sensory experience is. And you can almost feel all the little lines in your hand when you do this. Now, if you speed up, you might start to feel a bit of numbness and a little bit of heat. And if you start pressing harder, you might feel a lot of that. And of course, in the other direction, if we go very slowly and very lightly, it can get a little ticklish. So that kind of provides you a good experiential way of understanding the parabola of sensory experience that you can go through. So for this, I'm going to start by just tuning into my posture and kind of exploring being nice and stable, but also comfortable, and finding that balance point between what is enjoyable, but what is also pure in the sense of being well stacked and supportive. I always like the expression, be like a lump of soft clay, stable, but also pliable and soft. So now that I've established that, I'm going to tune into my breathing. And our breath can actually help us to create some space around our sensual experiences, as we'll explore. But for now, let's just tune into our natural breath and any pleasant sensations involved in taking in and releasing air. So now, I'm going to tune into my 5 senses in this present moment. We've already had a feeling sense develop through our body and breath. But we'll explore now sounds, anything you hear, the music, anything else in your house, perhaps your own breathing. And then explore the sights you see. I have some cute cats here, but also taking note of the color of my tea, the mélange of my salad, my strawberries, and my chocolate poking out there, the deep, rich brown of that. And also these little Hoya oxalis and orchids that I've put here just to brighten the space a little. And now I can move from sight into smells. And for this, I'm actually going to pick up my tea. And it doesn't smell like much, to be honest. It's green tea. But there is a very soft vegetal smell there. And now my salad is probably going to have more lemony herbaceousness in there. And then these strawberries smell just like summer. And the chocolate, which smells so rich and dark. And let's see if these guys have any. A little light lemoniness. I don't think the Hoyas or the Oxalis will, so I'll leave off on those. And now I'll finally get to tasting these things. But I'm going to keep those other senses in mind. So when I pick up my tea, I'm also feeling the warmth of it. And breathing in slightly as you take a sip or a bite of something will enhance the flavor, since our senses of smell and taste are so closely connected. So now I'll take another breath in between these things to just give it a little space, though I'm still gonna have some residual flavor of that tea carried over into the next thing, and that's okay. Now with this melange, I'm gonna try a little bite of everything first. I'm sorry if it gets crunchy for some things. Now that I've tried everything, I'm going to try and grab a little piece of everything, if I can. This Greek salad is a great way to experience a bunch of different flavors. Oh no, I lost my olive. No. I might have to do this in 2 goes. And that kind of change from one thing at a time to everything all at once can feel a little bit like the part of a song where the whole band's in there now. You don't hear single things as much, but you do get a different experience. Either one is fine, but it's interesting to take note. Cleanse my palate a little. And liquids, neutral liquids like tea, or some neutral fruits and veggies like berries, cucumber, celery, carrots can be great palate cleansers in between things, if you want to just clear the slate before you experience something else. Now I'm going to explore the strawberry, and because I'm a weirdo, I'm going to eat the green part, deal with it. It's just another sensory experience. Provides quite a contrast to that salad. But of course, I still have some residual heat from one of the pepperoncinis in there. So there's a bit of carryover from one thing to the next. And One thing I really like doing when I have both tea and chocolate is to take a nice big sip of tea to warm my mouth and then let the chocolate melt in there. So I'm going to explore that sensory experience. So obviously this way of eating is a lot slower. I did not get through much in 10 minutes. But the point of this is to experiment with how you can experience sensory pleasure either with things in isolation or with a bit of space being created around them with the breath. And this direct experience of your senses can put you in touch with why certain inputs create so much pleasure and how some things in combination do. So feel free to keep exploring and remembering to put a little breath around each different thing whenever you want to create more space. Enjoy.
So for today's art piece, I've got this stack of books with a mug and some flowers going on. If you want to follow along, I'll put up the line art, but try not to get bogged down in trying to do this exactly the same, because I might divert a little myself today. So to start with, I think I'm just going to outline these books. And I've got my color palette chosen out as usual. Today I'm going with a sort of spring greens and pinks. A lot of light green, or mostly light green, I should say, just because that's what I'm feeling for this time of the season. I'm gonna alternate my blues on the books here. Although that light blue might show up a little strangely, we'll see. And I have to remember to tuck it behind this little leaf. I already have some not so straight lines showing up. That's okay, they can be thick lines. It's not the end of the world if I go a little wavy. But if I do, what I might do is just make this line thicker, because thick lines usually show weight. So it's good to use some thicker lines every now and again, just to vary up what kind of line you're using for the sake of heaviness, and it also adds a bit of interest. But it does look a little bit more natural, or what we're, say, used to seeing if the heavier lines are on the bottom, not on the top. Just because that's where a shadow would be lying underneath that. Not that these have to be terribly realistic books, but I do like the idea of them being somewhat realistic looking books. another fun aspect to play with in art and be aware of, is the difference between realistic and more stylized things, and where you want a particular piece to sit on that spectrum that you can create with that. I'm just going to do these somewhat quickly and go away from the line design here, because since they're there, I'll actually be adding a few more lines by deviating. Sometimes deviating has a point to it, or can add more interest. And it also saves me a little time. Now, didn't quite think about that little coffee cup or teacup and what I wanted to put in there, but I can worry about that later. I do like the idea of it being blue though, because I do like this very light blue. It's actually called non-photo blue because it has a very hard time showing up on photocopies if I were to scan this. So it's used by a lot of artists to put down a layer of color that if you're trying to plan things out and sketch lines underneath, they'll get lifted off. So come in here with my dark blue now. I'm going to try another technique for the flowers and the leaves that I haven't quite done so far in any other videos here. But it's a way of coloring things in that have a lot of detail. And instead of going over each line again, what I'm going to do is actually just kind of color around them in very soft green. And just keep it nice and light. So I'm letting the design that's here sit underneath that. And if you don't have the design under here, I'm going to go in with my markers in a bit too to add some lines. But for now, just wanted to kind of add a bit of color over these. Fortunately, I did mistake some little flowers for leaves, so I'll have some funny flowers, but that's okay. Now, I am going to color this mostly in the lines, but I'm not really worried about that right now. I'm mostly just going for a general fuzzy pastel feeling here. I guess get these guys too while I'm here. I tend to wander over, but today I'm really trying to push myself to explore the idea of not trying to make everything perfect. So that's why I'm doing these kind of funny outside the line sort of things. It adds kind of a fun little sketchy effect. And as a bonus, it tells my inner perfectionist that the world doesn't end if we go outside the lines. Though I can hear that voice chirping in here that, oh, that looks silly or that looks stupid. And you know what? Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Doesn't matter. This is just in my own little book, so it doesn't have to look like anything. And now I'm just going to kind of go in and do some very loose, sketchy lines again. Since that's what I'm going for. And I'm gonna add some little dots around them too, just to enhance the sketchy feel of it. I really like how those look. So I'm gonna do more of that. Some of those dots end up more splotchy than I intended. Oh well, c'est la vie. I'm getting towards the 10-minute mark already here. But this is a good amount of stuff to make me feel like I've gotten most of this little piece done. And if I want to continue, I can finish outlining this cup or coloring in some of those books at a later time. But this is a good amount for now, and I'm happy with this. So maybe I'll just finish outlining this and then move on to our writing prompt. There we go. I'm happy with that. Now for my writing prompt, I'm going to start as I usually do by just going in and filling in this font. And I think today I'm going to use mostly markers for this because I feel like it, and I'd like to use these 4, so I'm going to skip 3 words in between to make it a sort of multicolor prompt. So what I'm asking is there a favorite spring treat or fresh food you can use to reward yourself for any goals or healthy habits? Would there be dangers to using this as a reward? And there are these Easter chocolates I really like that, had I been just a little bit more on the ball this season, I would have got a couple to stockpile for rewards like I've done in the past, but I've had kind of a busy spring, so I don't have any. So maybe right there I have an idea though for what I could use as a reward, and it's bunny substitutions. So instead of my favorite bunny-shaped chocolates, I'm going to have to find something new. That's not the worst thing to get me to explore new things, although exploring different kinds of chocolate can certainly be dangerous for the waistline. So, trying to think of any fresh things that I really, really enjoy or that I consider a treat. I like a lot of fruits and fresh food, but I don't know if I think of them as a reward so much. But I guess berries and some, say, sun-dried tomato salad is probably one of the things I consider a bit of a treat. Probably something I should make for myself more often. Because who's to say that treats should only come by once a week or less often than that even? Maybe I should be thinking about daily treats. So, yeah, salads I enjoy are definitely a treat into themselves, since they're both a healthy habit and a reward for doing something healthy. I could also put market fruit in there, because going to a farmer's market involves some amount of getting off my butt, and if I bike there, that would even make it healthier, so. Or walk. Any of those more active modes of transportation would be good to be rewarded with some fresh food that looks good. I mean, that's kind of a nice reward for dragging yourself out, because whatever's fresh is going to be the best, and that's not necessarily going to be the same thing every time. That's something to go explore and find out. Now, for the second part of this, the question of would there be dangers to using these things as rewards, I definitely see the sweets oops, I'm going to try and limit those, so I'm going to put down that should be limited to once per week. I think one of the kind of dangers with any of these fruits and fresh food is that it can be expensive, but going often, I could find what's on sale. So those are some ways to mediate some of the dangers to using those as rewards. And I think the other danger I was thinking of is that it should be something I can do daily. So looking for fresh things and going more often would be ways of mediating the expense, but also maybe getting myself more active and actually encouraging more of that. So can't think of any other dangers right off the top of my head, but I'm gonna do what I usually like to do and just do a little bit more coloring here so that I can ponder that question of whether there's anything else. Maybe this will be a green tea. Literally. This is so often not quite the case in real life. And I'm just going to add some little lines here, haphazardly. Like I said before, I'm trying to detach from making everything perfect, so doing these kind of quickly certainly helps to make sure you're not worrying too much about how pretty things end up. We need need certain things to be more lackadaisical. Not everything has to be slow, carefully considered projet d'art. There can be some things in our lives that are just slapdashery, just for our own amusement and fun. Since I really enjoy these dots, I'm gonna add some more. And I haven't thought of any more dangers, but for spring activities, and specifically spring, I should be using more park walks or bike rides to be both healthy habits and rewards. So I'm gonna toss that in there. And I could say bike rides to museums and galleries, since that's always fun. I could say park visits and picnics, which would be kind of fun to tie into the market fruit stand visits. If I can find a little place to go for a picnic after, that would be fun. All right. So for my craft part now, I've picked out some stickers and tapes that pull out some of the themes I've created here. I have a loose idea of where I want them to go. So I'll just start by sticking this in. Oh, forgot about some ticky-tacky. There we go. I do use ticky-tacky sometimes to plan out where I want some things to go, because I am a bit of a planner. And it does make it easy to move stuff around and decide where you want things. Although, every now and again, as you can maybe see here, the ticky-tacky can take a bit more with it than what you would have wanted. So, there's a risk with anything, even ticky-tacky. But that's also an opportunity for me to practice some creativity with where I'm going to place things, to make sure that that doesn't become a bother or an unsightly part of my collage. Really, anything can become a chance to exercise some creativity, especially if it's something problematic, because creativity is really about solving problems. Even very simple problems like, what color should this bunny rabbit be? Or how could I use mostly greens to paint a cabinet or whatever. See, I want to get most of this deer on here without covering up my prompt answer, but not too bad. There, that nicely boxes in my prompt. Except for the sides. I need to get those. I've been trying to use some of this tape more strategically, since it it's a lot stickier, whereas some of these really nice decorative tapes have a tendency to lift. And if you know the tendencies of your tapes, you can use them to your advantage by using stronger tapes to hold down weaker tapes. You didn't think this was a strategic activity, but it can be. There we are. Now I've got that nice green, pulling out some more of that. Framing that nicely. Kind of just want a little strip of this down here because I have a little Petit Prince, the Little Prince sticker that I'm gonna put on here to go with my books, since it's one of my favorite books. I think I'm gonna use this to cover that up. Also helps stick down this edge. I kind of want this bunny somewhere here, I think. Kind of looking across at the cup. I always kind of tend to like to have things looking towards the center when possible, just because that's a general good practice in composition, so that you have the eye being led towards center all the time, and that keeps the eye on the composition, or within the composition more naturally. But it's just a guideline, and the fun of this is partly trying to plan something out and seeing it pan out, but I think also it's very fun to just experiment, create some areas of overlap and interplay between different elements, like seeing what that color shows up as underneath that sticker. Do I want you connecting these two things or high above it? Oh, I like that connection. I don't want to cover up too much of that paper, so there. I think that's a happy medium. Now, have a couple butterflies I'd like to add in here as well. I think that little bunny needs a butterfly friend. Come here, check her out. Yeah. One thing I do really like some of these stickers for is using them to tack down unruly tapes, especially if it goes with the general theme on there, or if they're discreet enough to just sort of blend in nicely. It's always a good way to add without creating distractions. That's a very mindful way to collage, trying to think of what is distracting versus what is bringing your attention to things. Really, anything can be a distraction. Poorly placed sticker can be a distraction. But then again, so can obsessing over trying to fix too many things. So many little distractions that can come up while we're doing something as simple as sticking stuff onto a paper. I feel like that deer could use a little butterfly just saying hello to it as well. I need one pointing the other way. There we are. Perfect. Now they're looking at each other. One of my favorite things to try and create in a composition is things sort of looking at each other. And that can be with sort of suggestions like some of these butterflies, or even the way you place objects can make it look like it's looking at something. Depends how much you anthropomorphize it, I guess. So I think that's pretty good. I might tack down that tape with just some normal tape. Some clear tape to make sure it doesn't lift off, because I know what it wants to do. It wants to lift right off of that page the moment I turn my back. We'll stick one down here too to make sure this deer stays where I want it. And I'm happy with that. So I hope you enjoyed joining me for this journal session, and I hope you join me again soon.